Matthijs de Ligt remonstrating with the referees at the end of the game. 2-1. It finishes for West Ham, who take all 3 points from this fixture. But let's get word from Erik ten Hag on what he had to say after the game.
In football, it's not always the best team winning. And today, there was clear and obvious. And clear and obvious wasn't how the VAR worked. How they worked, how they run their process. And before the season, they explained the process of the VAR. And only when it's clear and obvious, then they should interfere. So what they didn't do against Spurs, where they should have done it, to interfere with the red card of Bruno. There was a wrong decision, and now they make, again, a wrong decision interfering. And both has a big impact on the scores of the games.
All right, let's start there then, shall we? Should that penalty have been given? Is Erik ten Hag got a point there?
I actually agree with Ten Hag that if they sit you down at the start of the season and say that decisions like the one we saw today have to be clear and obvious, then I'm with Erik ten Hag, because it wasn't clear and obvious. I watched this live and I saw nothing. So it certainly wasn't clear and obvious. And so if that's the criteria, then it shouldn't have been given. At the same time, when the referee goes to the monitor, de Ligt can't argue that it's a clumsy challenge and he barges into Danny Ings. And you can't argue that fact. So they're wrong that VAR got involved. But once it's involved, then it's a penalty because it's a clumsy challenge, and no question, he puts his knee into Danny Ings.
Now, I think it's a penalty. But in the process of VAR, what I would say is it doesn't help that when the referee goes over, he's staring at this camera, hands on his hip, and he's looking at it, and he's looking at it, and looking at it again, and looking at it again. And it's no less than 5 or 6 times that they show it to him and say, how many times do you need to see it? And once you go through that process where you need to see it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, however many it was, because it was many times that they kept replaying the same thing, then it is that threshold that you're talking about. Well, obviously, this is not clear enough for you to change your mind. And yet, it's almost as if, well, the longer I stay here looking at it, the more I feel compelled to now give the call. And so therefore, even when he blew for the penalty, he goes, blows for it and goes, penalty, yeah. And so I think it's a penalty. I just think that the way they went about it, it just took a whole lot longer than it should have to make a decision. And
as right as they are to feel aggrieved with that decision at the end, Ale, they got to look at those chances in the first half, though, Manchester United.
Well, first of all, let me clarify. I don't think they have a right to feel aggrieved by the decision. I think it's a penalty. Let me make it clear, just in case. No, I think it's a penalty.
But they definitely feel aggrieved by this.
Well, they can feel all aggrieved they want, but I still think it's a penalty. It's a foul. It's a foul. It's just how VAR went about it. That's a part that you can complain about if you're a Manchester United fan. Complain about your finishing in the first half. You want to whine about something. You want to really get upset and frustrated about something. How many chances? In fact, it's hard to think of a game in which Manchester United have created as many chances, quality chances, as they did in the first half today against West Ham. And look, we showed Garnacho and Dalot. Garnacho had a couple. Bruno Fernandes had a couple. Højlund had one as well. It was just, and it's not just half chances. These are quality 100% opportunities that they did not put away. And when you do that, you have enough lacking in your team that eventually something's going to happen where you're going to give up an opportunity. And West Ham, which we showed the stats, and it showed like 2.79 expected goals for West Ham. Where did that come from? Where in the world did that come from? Because they did not look even competitive in the first half, slightly better in the second half. They run into a goal, somehow end up winning this match. As for Manchester United, if you want to blame something, if you want to get angry about something, get angry about the opportunities that you did not put away in the first half.
What do you think, Stevie?
Well, Manchester United, we laughed last year at the end of the season when they were -2 goals. After 9 games, they're -3. So this isn't anything new that they're not putting the ball in the back of the net. So they're going to have to make changes. I mean, you can't do it. You can't keep doing this. And you can't dominate a side like West Ham and end up losing the game and try and point the finger at the referee or VAR or anything else. At the end of the day, if you do your job, your players do their job, you win this game comfortably. This game should have been out of sight at half-time. So, can you complain? Of course you can, but you've got to look at yourself.
Can any judgments be made on Ten Hag because of the way this game ended, or from this game?
Well, yeah, because all the players he's brought in aren't good enough.
But if we're looking at each game and assessing him after each game, is it a fair way to do it today after the way it ended?
Yeah, because it's about performances and results. And sometimes if you don't get the result, but you're putting a performance in, you can get away with it. But if you're getting neither, then there comes a time where you've got to chop the legs off the monster. And that's where they are. I mean, Højlund did not look like a Premier League footballer today. Your centre forward. He could have been out there still and he would never have got close to scoring a goal. So who's going to score goals for them? I mean, Rashford? Come on, don't think so. I mean, Garnacho, for a long time I've been sticking up for Garnacho, talking about he's still young, he's still learning his trade. Today was his 100th game. You've got to start taking your opportunities, because if you don't, then you're going to have to sit and they're going to have to bring somebody else in. But, yeah, I mean, listen, he's on borrowed time. We know he's on borrowed time. And it's just another defeat that kind of disappears into other defeats previously.
And I understand where you're coming from, Kay, in asking the question about, is this the game that we get judgmental about Erik ten Hag? Well, not necessarily if it's in a vacuum. If it's this game, if it's the fact that they didn't finish their opportunities today, I suppose not. But it's impossible to look at Erik ten Hag and not know that this is a continuation of what has already been happening. And so it's very difficult to separate today from what has been the reality of Manchester United. And Stevie just used the term there, the expression borrowed time. We all know it. And the players feel it. And the fans sense it. And it's dead men walking, and it's almost like, well, it's a matter of time, but when is it? When is that time coming? And apparently it's not coming anytime soon, and yet it feels like we're overdue.
No longer, when you hear Man United have lost, do you do anything other than, all right. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where they are. Oh, United lost today. All right.
And no better example than in midweek in Europa League, where they tie the game against Fenerbahce away from home. It's like, hey, all right. Manchester United tied against Fenerbahce. 1 point, baby. Here we go. We're flying. Manchester United, Fenerbahce. Manchester United, Fenerbahce. But that's where we are with Manchester United. That there is a positive to be taken from tying a game in Europa League, the second tier of competition, club competition in Europe, tying a game against Fenerbahce, and that somehow that is something that the fans should cheer about. The standards have dropped.
Okay, nothing to see here then. Chelsea against Newcastle is... oh, no, we've actually got Nedum and Frank with us.
Oh, all right.
I wasn't sure if we did, but they are here apparently. So, okay. Oh, there they are.
All right, okay.
That's why I didn't go to them, but now I see them.
All
okay,
right.
Nedum, let me get your thoughts on anything you'd like to add to the conversation here, or what you thought about this game?
To add balance, I think Ten Hag in his press conferences afterwards was mentioning the fact that they did miss tons of opportunities. So even though it seems like there's a slight thing where he's going at the referees, which you could say is justified from his perspective, I think he understands the value of those misses. And he said the first half, I believe, was as good as he's seen United play this season. And even though that is true to a certain extent, like, take your opportunities there. And I think the stat was they've missed 22 big chances this year. If you want to be a side that's going to be pushing up near the top of the table, you have to take those. And not least of all, the better sides that we see, like, we'll critique their performances, but the performances aren't necessarily linked to results, because the good teams find a way to win, even if they're not at their best. Whereas for United, it seems like for them to win, they have to be at their absolute best. And unfortunately for them, they don't have the consistency to be winning games like that week in, week out. And this game here today is a prime example. As the guys have said, in that first half, West Ham could not have looked any worse. So how is it the game finishes and United have lost away from home to a side that performed probably as poorly in that 45 minutes as any team we've seen so far this season? I think it's a big mark against them, but unfortunately for the way that they play and the way that they sort of offer teams encouragement, is something that we're going to be seeing going forward. And, you know, with the penalty decision as well, I could see why it is given as a penalty. And I think what I'd like to see is, as the official is standing there looking at the video, I want the audio to come out to see what they were saying to each other, because that time seems too long. But I suppose the process is the process, as long as it ends up being the right decision. And for them, I guess they believe that was the right outcome.
Frank?
Yeah, I just want to have the name of the guy who decided to at the beginning of the season to say, he has to be clear and obvious. I want the name because I want to call him and say that he has to quit, you know, any responsibilities in football, because it doesn't mean anything. You know, where are the age where, you know, you have to find if it's clear and obvious. Yeah, and I'm 100% with Ten Hag. I'm 100% with Stevie on the explanation. When you watch the game, yeah, it's not clear and obvious that De Ligt touch the player, the West Ham player. But when you see, it's clear and obvious that he kicks him. So it doesn't mean anything. Is it clear and obvious or is not clear and obvious? So yeah, give him the name, find an MK, please. I will call him and we try to not be bothered next year with a stupid rule.
I thought you had the name and all of the names in football in your contacts list, Frank. You're definitely the most connected out of all of us.
But that one, no, I only have smart people who decide to have good rules and you know, fair rules for football.
You got some homework to do, Kay. You got to go find the number.
So, all right, Frank.
You're doing it.
Just for you, Frank, only for you.